Breaking the chains of fear is one of the most powerful transformations a human being can undergo. Today, I want to share a profound story about how fear can imprison us and how courage can set us free. This tale isn't just about overcoming shyness, it's about the universal struggle we all face when confronting our deepest insecurities. In a bustling market town, there lived a merchant named Thomas who earned his livelihood selling salt. Thomas had built his business from nothing, working tirelessly to establish a reputation for quality and reliability. He had two sons. Lucas, the younger, was lively and outgoing, quick to laugh and make friends. Ethan, the elder son, was painfully shy. He would hesitate to speak, avoid eye contact, and struggle to express himself even in the most casual conversations. Because of his reserved nature, people often viewed Ethan as slow-witted or foolish. Some even took advantage of his innocence, knowing he wouldn't stand up for himself. Thomas watched this with growing frustration. He couldn't understand why his firstborn son lacked the basic confidence to function in society. In his mind, a man needed strength and assertiveness to survive in this world. Thomas's approach to solving this problem was harsh discipline. He believed that by scolding Ethan, by pointing out his weaknesses, he could somehow toughen him up. "Stop cowering like a frightened rabbit," he would shout. "Speak up. How will you ever amount to anything if you can't even look a man in the eye?" But these words only deepened Ethan's self-doubt, creating a vicious cycle of fear and failure. When Ethan reached adulthood, Thomas decided it was time for him to take on responsibilities in the family business. "You'll work in the shop," he declared. "It's time you learn to be a man." Fearful of disappointing his father yet again, Ethan agreed. But his nervousness led to mistakes. He would miscount inventory, fumble with money, and freeze up when customers asked questions. Each error fueled his father's anger and reinforced Ethan's belief that he was fundamentally incapable. One fateful day, while Thomas was away on business, a group of cunning men came to the shop. They wore fine clothes and spoke with authority. "Your father sent us," they lied smoothly. "We're here to take all the salt sacks to the city market. There's a shortage there, and prices have tripled. He wants to capitalize on this opportunity immediately." Ethan hesitated. Something felt wrong, but who was he to question these confident men? He wanted to ask for proof, to verify their story, but the words caught in his throat. What if they were telling the truth, and his questions offended them? What if his father had indeed sent them, and his hesitation cost the family a profitable opportunity? Before he could summon the courage to speak, the men had loaded all the salt onto their carts and disappeared. When Thomas returned and found the shop empty, his rage knew no bounds. "You fool," he roared, his face contorted with fury. "You let them steal everything. Years of work gone in an instant because you're too weak to question strangers. You've ruined me." His voice dropped to a cold, cutting tone. "Get out of my sight and never return. You are no son of mine." Ethan stood frozen, his father's furious words echoing in his mind. The humiliation burned through him like fire. He could hear the whispers of the townspeople, see the mockery in their eyes. "Thomas's useless son," they would say. Lost the entire inventory in one day. The weight of his failure, his helplessness, his lifetime of inadequacy crushed him completely. Feeling utterly worthless, Ethan wandered to the riverbank as the sun began to set. Tears streamed down his face as he stared into the dark, swirling waters. "I am nothing," he whispered. "A burden to my family, a joke to the town. There's no place for me in this world." The river seemed to call to him, promising an end to his pain, his shame, his constant fear. "I am a failure," he said aloud, his voice breaking. "There's no point in living anymore." He moved closer to the edge, preparing to surrender himself to the current. Just as he was about to jump, a firm hand grabbed his arm, pulling him back with surprising strength. "Stop," commanded a voice. Startled, Ethan turned to see a man about his age, dressed simply but with an air of quiet confidence. This was Noah, a disciple of a renowned spiritual teacher who happened to be passing by. Ethan, overwhelmed by despair and embarrassment, tried to pull away. "Let me go," he cried. "Why did you save me? I can't do anything right. My life has no value." Noah's eyes were calm and steady as he replied, "Life is given only once, my friend. If you are alive, you can change your fate. If you give up now, you'll never know what you're truly capable of." Ethan collapsed to his knees, his body shaking with sobs. "You don't understand," he said. "I am weak. My own father has disowned me. I have no skills, no courage, no future. Do I even deserve to live?" Noah listened patiently, without judgment, as Ethan poured out his sorrows. When the young man had finally exhausted his words, Noah spoke softly. There is someone who can answer your question better than I can. My teacher, Master Elijah, has helped many lost souls find their way. Come with me to meet him." At first, Ethan refused. What could any teacher do to fix his broken life? But something in Noah's voice gave him a flicker of hope, and he reluctantly agreed to follow. They traveled for several hours, leaving the town behind and entering a peaceful forest where Master Elijah, a great sage known for his wisdom, meditated under an ancient oak tree. The old man's face was lined with age, but his eyes shone with remarkable clarity and compassion. Seeing him, Ethan fell to his knees, fresh tears spilling from his eyes. "You are my last hope," he sobbed. "If you can't help me, I will end my life." Master Elijah listened carefully as Ethan recounted his story, his lifelong struggle with fear, his father's disappointment, and the catastrophic mistake that had cost his family everything. When Ethan finished speaking, the sage remained silent for a long moment, his eyes closed in contemplation. Finally, he spoke. "I have a solution for you, young man. But before I reveal it, you must follow my instructions for 3 days. If you complete these tasks exactly as I described them, I promise your life will change forever." Desperate for any glimmer of hope, Ethan agreed without hesitation. "Very well," said Master Elijah. "Your transformation begins tomorrow." The first task seemed simple but was terrifying for Ethan. "Go into the village near my ashram," instructed the sage, "and talk to 10 strangers. Ask them about their lives, their joys, and their sorrows. Listen carefully to their answers and write down what you learn." Ethan's heart raced at the thought. "But Master, I can barely speak to people I know. How can I approach strangers?" The sage smiled gently. "That is precisely why this is your first task. Now go." With trembling legs, Ethan ventured into the village. His first attempts were disastrous. He stammered, blushed, and could barely make eye contact. Some people ignored him, others were impatient or rude. But he persisted, remembering the alternative that awaited him if he failed. By evening, he had somehow managed to speak with 10 different people. To his surprise, not all interactions were negative. An elderly woman had shared stories of her youth. A farmer had explained his techniques for predicting rain, and a young mother had shown him her newborn baby with pride. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt a small sense of accomplishment. When he returned to Master Elijah and reported his success, the sage nodded approvingly. "You see, you have already done what you thought impossible. Tomorrow your challenge will be greater." On the second day, Master Elijah gave Ethan an even more daunting task. "Today you must teach 10 children about the importance of water in our lives." Ethan was horrified. "But Master, I'm not educated. I don't know how to teach. The children will laugh at me." The sage's response was calm but firm. "Those children don't know that you feel uneducated. They don't know your past or your fears. Just share what you already know, and they will listen." With his heart pounding like a drum, Ethan stood before a group of village children who had gathered under a tree. His hands trembled visibly, and his voice was barely audible as he began to speak. He managed to explain 5 essential uses of water for drinking, cooking, cleaning, growing crops, and supporting animal life before his courage failed him completely and he quickly walked away. That evening, he confessed to the sage, "I was terrified the entire time, but I did it." Master Elijah nodded. "Try again tomorrow morning. The same children will be waiting." The next morning, Ethan returned to the children. This time, his voice was steadier, and he even managed to answer a few of their questions. By the end of the lesson, he realized with astonishment that he was no longer afraid. The children's innocent curiosity had somehow dissolved his fear. "You did well," said Master Elijah when Ethan reported his progress. "Now comes your final and most difficult task." On the third day, the sage delivered the challenge Ethan had been dreading most. "Go to your father. Apologize for your mistake and prove to him that you have changed." Ethan's newfound confidence evaporated instantly. "No, that's impossible. He will never forgive me. He told me never to return." The sage remained unmoved. "If you refuse this task, I will not give you the final lesson you seek. The choice is yours." For hours, Ethan wrestled with his fear. The thought of facing his father's anger and contempt again was almost unbearable. But finally, summoning every ounce of courage he had gained over the past 2 days, he set out for home. The journey back to town was the longest of his life. With each step, his anxiety grew, but so did his determination. When he finally stood before his father's house, he took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Thomas opened it, and his face hardened at the sight of his son. Before he could speak, Ethan bowed his head and said, "Father, I have failed you, and I am deeply sorry, but I will not run away anymore. I am here to face the consequences of my actions and to ask for one chance, just one, to prove that I can be the son you deserve." Something in Ethan's voice, in his posture, was different. Thomas saw it immediately, a new steadiness in his son's gaze, a firmness in his shoulders that had never been there before. After a long, tense moment, he stepped aside and allowed Ethan to enter. That evening, when Ethan returned to Master Elijah, his eyes were bright with wonder. "My father has forgiven me," he said. "He will let me work to repay what was lost. But Master, I still don't understand. What is the secret to success that you promised to teach me?" Master Elijah smiled. "You have already discovered it, my son. Your greatest enemy was never your shyness, it was your fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of your own potential. People see you the way you present yourself to the world. Even if you feel weak inside, if you act with confidence, no one will doubt you. True strength comes not from the absence of fear, but from the courage to act despite it." Tears of gratitude filled Ethan's eyes as understanding dawned. "I see it now," he whispered. "All my life I've been imprisoned not by others' opinions of me, but by my own beliefs about myself. I will never let fear control my life again. Remember this lesson well," said the sage. "And remember also that confidence is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes." Years passed, and the transformation that began in those 3 days continued to unfold. Ethan worked tirelessly to rebuild his father's business, applying both diligence and innovative ideas. He learned to speak clearly and persuasively, to negotiate with suppliers, to manage employees. The shy, hesitant boy became a respected businessman, admired not only for his commercial success but for his wisdom and quiet confidence. When people asked about his remarkable change, Ethan would smile and say, "I simply stopped believing the story I had been telling myself about who I was and what I could become." This story reminds us of a profound truth. Confidence is not something we are born with, it is something we build, one brave action at a time. Even the shyest person can become strong if they choose to believe in themselves and take consistent steps outside their comfort zone. Our greatest limits exist only in our minds. Fear and self-doubt can hold us back from reaching our potential, but courage and persistence can change everything. Ethan thought he was destined to fail, to live forever in the shadow of his inadequacy. But by stepping beyond his comfort zone, by confronting the very situations that terrified him, he transformed not only how others saw him, but how he saw himself. Confidence grows when we push past our fears, one step at a time. Each small victory builds upon the last, creating a foundation of self-belief that can withstand life's challenges. The world sees us the way we choose to present ourselves. When we stand tall, speak clearly and act with purpose, even if we're trembling inside, we reshape not only others' perceptions but our own reality. Believe in yourself, take action despite your fears, and you will find strength you never knew you had. Your journey to confidence begins with a single step, the decision to break the chains of fear that have held you back for far too long. Remember Ethan's story when you face your own moments of doubt. The path to transformation is rarely easy, but it is always possible. And it begins not with extraordinary talent or perfect circumstances, but with the simple, powerful choice to move forward despite your fears.